Port of Oakland. We are a community of about 24,000 people, and we have gone from over the past almost 30 years from a 65% African American, maybe 23% African American over the last almost 30 years. But our impacts of the impacts of the Port of Oakland also we are surrounded by three major freeways, and all the supportive services for the Port of Oakland, especially for the trucks, are within our neighborhood. So going back to about 1996, a group who had been a think tank who wanted to invest in West Oakland West Oakland had a small grant to train and educate and orientate residents on how to use indicators and develop the skill set to do research and data. So that's our beginning of using research and data as the primary parts of all our campaigns, of understanding the ebb and flow of the impacts of West Oakland because of we being in this close to this facility called the Port of Oakland. So we have been utilizing research and data to develop our own community participatory research documents for the last 20 plus years. And more recently, using the data for outdoor and indoor air quality to establish what is how to use enforcement, exposure, proximity, and land use. And with us also, we have been able to have our own air monitoring equipment and train residents how to use the equipment and to identify the impacts throughout not just West Oakland, but also as a advocacy tool to address some of these issues. And we also have trained residents in other EJ communities on how to use this, how to utilize equipment, air monitoring equipment. And so in 2018, the state of California passed a legislation that said that all communities like West Oakland, up and down the state, no matter where the impacts, from forest fires to agricultural issues to refinery issues to like that, we're able to start establishing action plans for reduction. And at the end of the day, as of right now, we are in the place, because of all that work we have done, we're in the action phase of developing an implementation of 89 strategies as part of emission reduction, but using the baseline of exposure, proximity, land use, and enforcement.
Yeah, and can you just talk about a little bit, because, just thinking about some of the things that I've heard you say in the past, talking about how when you became, when you started in environmental advocacy, how you thought it was just whales and save the fish and those kind of things, and how it ties into racial and social justice and the impact.
Okay, when I first started doing this in when I first really started understanding it, my perception of the environmental justice was the species as fish, whales, and animals. Only after I really got to understand the human connection to the injustice that I started seeing environmental justice as a placeholder to start. How do we release, and evaluate, revive our communities based on because of certain facilities and certain businesses in our community. So also that came about because I was able to, at that time, I was part-time cleaning. I used to clean houses as a part of my income, and one of my clients was the baykeeper, and I used to take all his books that he was discarding, and I just would read all these books about the environment. And then as I start understanding get more clarification about the connection to the human species and the impacts because of what things are placed in your community and how destructive that is to people's health. That's how I really start understanding environmental justice, the public health, the need to have the science, understanding the science, the research, and making sure that the local residents had participation, more than just participation, but also part of solving these issues based on all this information.
And so through your experience, what is one thing that you see most people doing that they should not do, or something that we should be participating in to make sure that racial and social justice happens during this environment fight?
You have to. One of the things you have to learn how do you work collaboratively and getting down to the specifics and clarification. If you don't have that mode of operation, it's just always a confusion. It's messy. It's combative. And you got to have a place where everybody has a common ground. And I see that was one of our as West Oakland Environmental Indicators methodology of how we have more than just a seat at the table. How we get to organize and structure a table.
Okay, and so you're in California, and we're in North Carolina. So just from your background and your knowledge, what do you see as some similarities? And have you worked with any group in North Carolina? We do have a person coming on from North Carolina shortly, but just in your experience, what are some things that you've seen from your perspective compares with North Carolina?
Well, one of the things that I've seen, because I have worked with Omega Wilson over the years, him and I have collaborated on many different things nationally around with U.S. EPA. And one of the things that has been this on the same parallel as North Carolina is the growth of warehousing, and how warehousing has been interjected really close to where people are, and not taking in mitigations such as electric trucks, such as time of day that these trucks are being used, where the facility, how close the facilities are to where people are, schools, hospitals, seniors. We have the same problem in California.
Okay. And have you seen, for example, thinking about problems in children like asthma and maybe some other?
Oh, yes. We just 2 years ago, the city of Oakland, almost 2 to 3 years ago, the city of Oakland developed a equity and race department, and they did a indicator study of all those impacts that include where people live, where people work, where people go get health services, where they get food, all those types of geographic, are just all those things that are life matter issues. And they concluded that based on emergency services for children between the ages of 1 to 5, we have more children in those zip codes that would be considered the environmental justice neighborhoods. We have more children going to emergency hospital for respiratory problems or asthma.
And that's
And then we
significant.
also have done a recent study with Kaiser Foundation that we found out that 40% of the seniors between the ages of 55 and older are susceptible to cardiovascular disease. That cardiovascular disease in our neighborhood.
Wow, wow. And that's scary. That's scary. And have you seen any reduction based off of the work you've been doing?
No, we have not seen that significant reduction, but we haven't seen, and health-wise, but we haven't seen the reduction of people leaving because of they can't afford to stay here or they're too sick to stay here.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you. And just hold on for just 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Muhammad go ahead and introduce herself. She's the other panelist and she may know Omega as well, but we're going to let her introduce herself and tell us her background and story and the work that they're doing. Ms. Muhammad, how are you?
I'm fine. How are y'all?
Doing well, doing glad you made it okay.
Yeah, I had to break all the speed limits, but I got here.
I didn't want you to get into any trouble. I knew you had a hard time getting here, so thank you for joining us. Yeah, so
Okay,
this is your time. You can just go ahead and tell us, again, about your work, your organization, and some of the things that you're doing, and maybe how we can advocate as educators.
Okay. And so everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So my name, I am Naima Muhammad, and I'm the organizing director with, okay, my computer keep muting itself.
Okay. How about this? Is that working?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Because I
yes.
think it's muted again.
Okay. Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So all right, again, good evening, everybody.
You got a little echo, so you may have to, you got a little echo, so you got two devices, you may have to just use one.
No, sometimes, let me see. Sometimes it will take me in twice for some reason. Let me go out and come back.
No, you're fine. I can try to mute the other one or however you want to do it.
Okay, but you still getting the echo? Yeah, because I hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just go out and come right back in.
All righty. Okay.
That's what it is. I'm on twice.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you just fine.
Okay,
now.
that's better.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. No worries at
Again,
all.
good evening. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Lawrence, for asking me to be a part of your event this evening. I am Naima Muhammad, and I'm the organizing director with the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. And we are a statewide organization working with communities that's living with environmental hazards and toxic waste sites on ways to protect themselves, to try and prevent some sightings if it's known ahead of time that something is coming, work with communities on things they can do to try to prevent the sighting from taking place. And for those things that's already there, we work with them on ways to organize their communities to work together in unity to try and change the conditions that exist there. We also assist with research for trying to help communities get answers to questions they have about how things are affecting their health, their air, their water. There are a lot of issues with property values, quality of life, people feeling like prisoners in their own homes because the air smells so bad they can't just go outside when they want to. They feel like they have to negotiate with the air. Like many people tell me, they get up in the mornings, they crack the door open just a little bit to see if it's stinking outside. If it's not stinking, then they go out, they rush out to do what they have to do, trying to get done and get back in before the odors come. Because when the odors come, you do not want to be outside. Children coming home from school, getting off school buses, running home versus walking, and which takes away from their social life in terms of how if you ever rode the school bus, you get off, you walking with your friends, you talking and playing and just cruising home. But these children get off running because it smells so bad outside. They trying to hurry up and get in. Children, I've heard stories of children literally throwing up because the odors are so bad. Even adults, say how they get nauseated, they stay nauseated, and have headaches, running eyes, burning noses. There are a lot of upper respiratory problems. We've been able to document that children living in these communities have higher rates of asthma, on more asthma medication, missing more time out of school. They don't get good rest at night because of the truck traffic from all this production that's taking place in their communities. So they are not resting well at night, which impacts their ability to function in school. So they are affected all the way around. Some of the issues that we are addressing in North Carolina, we have a huge concentrated animal feeding operations problem. We have North Carolina has about almost 10 million pigs, more pigs than people in the state, and the the the, the majority of these pigs are in eastern North Carolina, and they're sitting in predominantly African American, Native American, Latinx communities, which we have called the environmental racism, because it's like we feel that this was done because they feel these communities had the least amount of political and economic power to fight these people, these industries. And so they cited themselves there because that's where they got the least amount of resistance. And we know this because when the pork industry first started coming into North Carolina, they went to Pinehurst, North Carolina. And anybody know anything about Pinehurst, know that's a white golfing community. And they weren't about to have all that hard waste around them while they're on those golf courses. So they fought them off. But they also had, the economic power and the political power representation to fight these things off. In our communities, we have representatives that side with the industry against the people against their constituents. And we've experienced this firsthand in our fight against this pork industry, which we've been fighting this battle nearly 3 decades, because they started coming into North Carolina in the early 80s. And they just continued to grow and grow and grow. And then in 1997, there was a moratorium put in place to slow down the proliferation of the pork industry. But by that time, North Carolina was already riddled with pigs. And so even though the moratorium was put in place, it didn't stop the damage and the harm that's being done to communities. So it's been a long, hard fight. We've fought them at the state level, the local level, and the federal level, and it's like nobody in those agencies had the will, I say the will or the backbone to rein in this industry. They just let them have their way. And we know that the pork industry has put a lot of money at the state level with our state representatives. And if you follow the trail of the pork industry, you'll find a lot of their money been distributed in Raleigh at the state capitol with our legislators, and that's why we can't get anything done. the Department of Environmental Quality, who is the regulator in the state that's supposed to regulate these industries and how they operate, they've not had the will to do anything about it either. And in 1998, there was a process began called the Smithfield Agreement, and Smithfield at the time was the owner of all these 10 million pigs in North Carolina. And so they started a process called the Smithfield Agreement, where they had various environmental organizations coming to the table, meeting, discussing what could be done different to cut down some of the problems that people were experiencing. And under the Smithfield Agreement, Smithfield was asked to find some better technology for handling the waste from these animals, because their current waste management system was outdated and presented a huge amount of problems for people living near these animals. They had what they call a lagoon and spray field system. And I always tell people, when we say lagoon, we're not talking about that blue lagoon that Brooke Shields was hanging out in. We talking about a lagoon that's full of nothing but feces and urine from all of those pigs. And the lagoon is nothing but where they dug a hole in the ground and put a piping system running underground from the hog houses out to that lagoon. And so everything that those animals do that's waste flushes out through those pipes into that open air lagoon, and it's just sitting out there in the environment. There's a lot of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia that comes off of that waste that's presenting the health problems for people, and the stench that they smell. And then when the lagoons begin to fill up, they use the industrialized irrigators to spray the waste out to empty out those lagoons. And they're spraying that waste out around on the crops in the community. It gets on the people's homes, their cars, and as they say, it'll get on your body if you're out there, because it looks like a big pool of rain coming down. It's a big pool of rain coming down, and if the wind gets under it, you know how rain mist look when it's misty rain. Well, that's what that waste look like if the wind get under it. It start carrying the waste away from where it's actually coming directly from the irrigator. And the industry told our state representatives that people were lying when they said the waste was getting onto their homes, and that they told the state that the waste does not leave the operation that it's produced on. And we was like, okay, so do you think we idiots? Everybody know that air and water travel. There's no way you gonna control that. And so if air and water travel, there's no way this waste gonna stay right there where you're producing it at. And so maybe about 2-3 years ago, we had some researchers that come down from Johns Hopkins University, and they did what they called a pig two-back study. And in that study, they went into the communities where people live near these animals, and they took those big Q-tip swabs like they doing the corona test with. They use those kind of swabs, and they swab the outside of people's homes, the outer walls. They swab the air conditioning units in the windows. They swab up under awnings and stuff like that. And then they went inside and they used those Q-tip swabs to swab inside people's homes. They swab countertops, tabletops, children's toys, refrigerators, coffee tables, things in the home. And in doing that, they found animal waste when they sent it in for analyzation, it was pig waste inside people's homes and on their outer homes. And so that refuted the idea that this waste don't leave the site. And so it was scientific proof that the waste was traveling like people said it was. But anyway, back to I'm sorry, I'm jumping. I'm trying to stay I don't want to confuse anybody. I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions. But the Smithfield agreement was to find some new technology to handle the waste that would be better than the Laguna Spraker system. Smithfield paid a researcher from North Carolina State University by the name of Mike Williams $17.2 million to do the research to identify this technology. Mike Williams found 5 new technologies that were better than the Laguna Spraker system. And then Smithfield told the state of North Carolina that it was not economically feasible for them to get this clean technology on the ground. And the state let them walk with that. And so this was in 2000 when the process started in 98, but it was in 2000 when Smithfield signed an agreement with the state of North Carolina that they would get the cleaner technology on the ground. And we in 2021, and that technology is still not being used. And so people are still having to suffer with this lagoon and spray field system. And you know, like I said, it's changed people's lives. They don't go outside, they can't sit on their porches, they don't garden the way they used to, they don't have like their family gatherings where they used to have birthday parties and family gatherings and community gatherings outside their homes. They can't do that anymore. They have to rent facilities to do this. And then they have to if they want have a if they had clotheslines, they no longer use their clothesline because if you hang the clothes out and the odor comes to get into the clothing, and then they have to redo their laundry to get rid of the odor in the clothes. So they've been forced to use washers and dryers, purchase them, or go to a laundromat. And these are already economically distressed communities who did not have these kinds of things in their budget. So it's pressing them even more. Also, they were the majority of people on wells, but now they can't use their wells because there's so much ground contamination from all this waste being sprayed out and seeping into the soils and stuff. And people's wells are contaminated, so they now forced to buy bottled water and gallons of water to do what they need to do. One lady had her water tested because she saw an article in the paper that said you could get your water tested for free. So she called and got her water tested. They came out and collected the water from the outside of her home and the inside. 2 weeks later, she get a letter back from the Department of Water Quality with DEQ, and they told her not to drink her water, not to bathe with it, not to wash dishes with it, don't cook with it. And if you have any animals, don't let your animals drink it. And she had some dogs. She had a dog and some puppies, and they all died. And she was forced off of her water completely. And so she had to buy bottled water and jugs of water to do everything that she needed to do. And that's just one story. And we talk about many, many people having to deal with this kind of situation. That's the concentrated animal feeding problem in North Carolina. Then we have, you know, this at one point there was a massive influx of landfills into the state of North Carolina. In 2006, North Carolina had been slated to become the 4th largest landfill state in the country. And we were partnered, the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network had one of our board members was a professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Public Health, Department of Epidemiology, Dr. Steve Wing, and he did any research that we needed done for people to get questions, to answer questions about what was happening to them. And so they did an awful lot of research around the pig problem, but they did some around landfills. And the student that did the landfill research, when she got done, she presented the research, and it showed that of all the landfills coming in the state of North Carolina, they were always being placed in Black communities. And again, another, you know, part of the environmental racism that we talk about. And so as a result of that, we went to the state of North Carolina at that time they had what they call the EJ Commission. We had a public hearing with them. The student, we used her research. She had moved away to New York at the time because she had graduated. They asked her to come back. They brought her back to North Carolina to present her research and talk about, what the process she used for finding this information. And she was able to show them her research and show that it was in fact true that the landfills were in predominantly African American communities, and that every new landfill that was slated for the state was looking at African American communities. We work with a community out of Bladen County, in the Regalwood community, and they were supposed to be getting a landfill, and we were able to work with them and fight that landfill off. So we were able to prevent that landfill. And then in Supply, North Carolina, down in Brunswick County, we worked with the community there that was cited to get a C and D landfill, that's construction and demolition, to get a C and D landfill. And we were able to work with that community and got legal representation. We had the lawyers from the UNC Civil Rights Law Center who partner with the EJ Network. And anytime we work with communities that need legal representation, they come in and do the legal representation pro bono. And they were I call them kick butt lawyers because they don't be playing with these folks. And so they went in and represented the community in Brunswick County. They wound up having to go to court suing the Brunswick County commissioners, and they won the case for the community. So instead of them getting a C&D landfill, they supposed to be getting a school. And but the community really stood up and fought. They had never dealt with environmental stuff before, and when they got cited with this landfill, they called on North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. We went and met with them, and we introduced them to the understanding of environmental injustice and what it looked like and why we talk about it and how it shows itself. And it was through that process that the community formed a community organization called the Royal Oak Concerned Citizens Association. And they began meeting on a regular basis and really going after their county commissioners about this landfill. And then the county got mad when they started suing them, and they wanted to depose everybody in the community. And we told the community they only doing that. That's a form of intimidation. They figure if they tell you they gonna depose you, you gonna get scared and stop talking. But we telling y'all to keep going, and this is what a deposition looks like. This is what they do, and you just stand your ground. You know what you know, and don't back down. And it was through that process that they went in and did those depositions and came out with their heads up and their chests out, and they were proud that they had done it. And then they won, and that was really a victory for them, and they really celebrated. And this, because this was a community where the county, Brunswick County, had been running over them for decades. They put an animal shelter down on them. Moved. The first thing they did to them, they started doing this process called sand mining, where they would go into this community and they would dig out the dirt in that community and take it to Wilmington for beach erosion. So they tearing up this black community while they building up these beach areas, which we know who have time to live on and hang out at the beaches on a regular basis. And then they built a white community downstream from this black. This was a totally black community. They built a white community downstream from them where the animal shelter had been for years. And the white people didn't want the land, didn't want the animal shelter, so they picked it up and moved it up to this black community. They hooked the animal shelter up to the water and sewer, but the community people didn't have water and sewer. They were all on wells. And the sand mine had begun drying out their wells because it was sucking up the waters. And then they needed a waste treatment plant. And the only place in Brunswick County that they could find to put the waste treatment plant was right at the foot of this community. They hooked it up to water and sewer, and the community didn't have it. So by the time they called us, they were totally frustrated and worn out. And the landfill was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's when they called for help. And so we went down and met with them and was able to help them get organized and address the issue and prevent that landfill siting as well. And you know, there are an array of issues. I don't know how much more you want me to say, how much more
Oh,
time
yeah,
you want me to talk. You
yeah.
can be
So
quiet and answer the question.
yeah, you and Ms. Gordon as well brought some eye-opening information to us. You know, just thinking about the kids having to run home from school and just thinking about some of those things. And we are short on time, so what I want to do is let Ms. Gordon add to the conversation and
Okay.
just give us some remarks that you have, and then I'll let you close us out, Ms. Muhammad.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Ms. Gordon, I think you're on mute, Miss. Let me see if I can. Can you unmute? I don't know if I can do it from my end.
Now, what did you say?
Yeah, okay, so I just wanted you, because we're down to the end of the program, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to add to anything that you've heard or any last words that you want to leave with us.
The last words I would like to say is that we have to utilize all opportunities based on who is our president right now and change the format and the paradigm that US EPA and any other government agencies that are supposed to be making our lives much healthier.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Ms. Muhammad.
Yes. Okay, and I agree with Ms. Gordon, and I'm sorry I didn't get to hear everything that Ms. Gordon had to say. I came in as she was talking, but I do agree in terms of we see this change in government as an opportunity to hopefully get some of these issues resolved and move everybody into a better place. And as far as the Environmental Protection Agency go, we've been dealing with them for years, and they've never had the authority that they should have had to address the environmental problems. And because they were being held back by elected officials that care more about corporations than they do the people that they supposed to represent, these problems have not been fixed. And the EPA didn't feel that they had the authority without being attacked by these legislators and these government people. And, you know, there was a fear of job loss and everything. And so they didn't operate the way they should. Now with President Biden coming in, he's talking a good game right now about environmental concerns and stuff. So we're gonna try to hold his feet to the fire. He's putting some people in the EPA. The secretary from North Carolina, who used to be the secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality, Michael Regan, he's gone to DC. He got nominated as the EPA, the head of the EPA, and we plan on holding his feet to the fire. We've had a working relationship with him while he was in the state, and we plan on holding his feet to the fire. We know that he knows North Carolina well and know the problems that exist here. And so we're expecting him to try to help fix some of this stuff while he's there. There are some other people that's being put in place in the Biden administration that we have working relationships with. That's also, you know, I got a call last night from this attorney from Vermont Law School to tell me she was being elected to the general counsel there, and that, you know, she wanted us to know that because she's hoping that her relationship with us has garnered her enough information that she'll be able to work from the inside to try to help change some of these conditions. And, you know, and so we feel that we have at least a running chance. But it's going to take all of us working together. It's going to take all of us holding their feet to the fire. And as we begin to learn about each other and meet each other, we need to keep the relationship going and find ways to work together to address the problem. Because North Carolina is riddled with environmental problems, and it's basically all the communities look alike that's suffering. And that's no mistake. And we need to understand that it's no mistake. And you know, sometimes people be afraid to say, I would say, call a spade, you know, and because if dumping was done equally, we wouldn't have so much dumping done. But it's like anything white people don't want in their community, you can find in black communities all around this state. And that is no mistake. Again, we call it environmental racism. It's intentional behavior. It's no mistake, and we need to understand that.
Yeah, and I do think that, and we got to go, and I thank both of you for being on. And this is a very important issue because I think that we know these things, but I don't think people know the depths of,
Yeah.
and the history and the systemic way it's being done. So,
Yeah.
and the next time we talk, I'm gonna have to tell you some stories about well water because you know, I used to have to pump some well water myself. So we're gonna have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I remember doing it when I was young as well. Go to my grandparents, they had well water. And we used to love it. We were city kids, so it was fun for us to go out to the country and get some well water. Yeah, so
that's all right.
but
That's all
yeah,
right.
so and I would invite you all to visit our website where we have a wealth of information on the various environmental issues in North Carolina. There's some current ones like the wood pellet industry is on the move in North Carolina. They're chopping down trees all around the state, and it's all in the floodplains because Eastern North Carolina is the floodplains, and so they're chopping down trees to to produce these wood pellets that they're not even using in this country. They're shipping them out to Europe and places. They say it's about 1 million people in the country that use these wood pellets for fuel.
Excuse me, we have the same issue here that they cut down the arborists as part of the city of Oakland, cut down trees indiscriminately, especially where the black folks, brown folks, poor folks live.
Yes. And they're setting up these plants called Enviva. Enviva is a wood pellet plant where they're burning this wood, producing these pellets and shipping them out of the area. But the communities that's suffering with these plants are our communities. Everywhere they place them, they in our communities. And so it's a huge problem. And the fact that we're in the floodplain make it even more of a problem for all of this environmental degradation, because when the flood waters come, it wash all this stuff up and out, and
right.
People are suffering with this filth in the waterways as they trying to navigate to safety.
Wow. Well, Ms. Gordon, I'm gonna let you close us out.
Okay, I got to. Nice to meeting everybody. I hope we're gonna stay connected. There's a lot going on. We can learn from each other, especially about the air monitor and air modeling to look at these impacts and have our own evidence. I'm hoping that we can stay in touch to teach each other that.
Yes, ma'am. We sure can, and we sure should. Like I said, you can visit our website at North Carolina Environmental Justice Network and there's a wealth of information there about the environmental problems that we deal with. And sometimes we have information about ways we're addressing it, events that we have that's coming up that you can attend. That's a learning process as well.
Yeah, Mr. Lawrence, please give her my email address, and we have a website also here in West Oakland with lots of technical information that we've been utilizing. And like I said, we work to set the table, not just be at the table, but set the table.
That's right.
And we really have worked hard to make sure that when we set the table, we coming out, we leaving the table with some resolution.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'll make
because
sure.
we always tell people, if we're not at the table, you can be guaranteed we on the menu.
Mhm.
Yes, amen. Hey, woman. Yeah, we gonna hey one or the other. Or we have to make up our own menu,
That's
for
right,
our
that's
own
right.
flavor and taste.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
That sounds
Well, I
good, sir.
certainly want, Lawrence, if you could help us exchange information, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely, I will do. I will do.
Okay,
I am so
thank you.
grateful for each of you. I will make sure you have the information before the night is over. So thank you, thank you, thank you so
Thank you
much.
too.
All right, appreciate
Thank
y'all.
you.
And we'll look
Well,
forward to
thank you
staying
for
in
having
touch.
us, yeah.
Really.
And one last thing I would like to say to you, Lawrence,
Mm.
and that is, I know you are with the NCAE, so that's an opportunity for you all to bring this information into the schools where the students can begin learning about this stuff at an early age, and they won't be so disconnected from it, because many of our students are living in these communities that we talk about, and they need to be hearing stuff on a regular basis. And so you can, if you have science classes, that would be a good thing for a science class to take on, talking about environmental issues and how it impacts them, and then what kind of scientific steps you can look at for addressing this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We're going to be in touch, and I'll make sure you and Miss Gordon get each other's information, and then I want to be at the
Thank
table
you.
too. So